What's up, weirdos? I'm Felicia and I like scary movies, and today I'm bringing you a bunch of folk horror movie recommendations to keep your October spooky and full of human sacrifice. Now, I started getting really interested in folk horror after seeing Midsummer last year. That was, of course, one of my favorite films of 2019. Oh, so freaking good. Now, folk horror is a subgenre, and if you wanted a little definition about how to spot a folk horror movie, here's what I've gathered from the internet. So folk horror typically takes place in rural, isolated communities, and the scares or the horror aspects typically come from inside that community itself and are mixed with the natural elements around them. Some folk horror is more supernatural or ritualistic, but it is always terrifying. Now, the first film I'm going to recommend to you is part of this trifecta of 3 horror films that created this subgenre, and the one I want to recommend is The Blood on Satan's Claw from 1971. Now, the 2 other films in that are Witchfinder General from 1968, and of course the most famous one, I would say, The Wicker Man from 1973. Now, the reason I'm going to recommend The Blood on Satan's Claw is because I found it actually the most terrifying of the 3. This one takes place in the 17th century in England and is about a group of children in a small village that slowly become a coven of devil worshippers. This movie was directed by Piers Haggard and has a true standout actor in it by the name of Linda Hayden, and she plays the character of Angel Blake, and she is kind of the leader of this coven. She kind of gets the rest of the kids into it. She's kind of the epitome of the idea of a girl that has signed the devil's book and is now behaving in all sorts of terrible ways. She is violent, ruthless, sexual, and has these very exciting eyebrows drawn on. This movie also has that 70s grit to it that makes it feel like almost too real and too strange and unsettling. I don't know. But I really liked it and think it's a perfect introduction to folk horror. Now, the next few movies are much more modern, so let's move to 2013 to talk about Jugface. This movie was written and directed by Chad Crawford Kinkle, and I actually heard about this movie in a Fantasia Film Festival panel that was talking about folk horror, so I'm actually going to link that discussion down below and you guys can learn way more about this subgenre than I could ever tell you. But they mentioned this movie and I checked it out and thought it was awesome. It follows a young woman named Ada who lives in this backwoods small community, and they worship a supernatural pit in the ground in the middle of the forest. And every once in a while, this pit wants a human sacrifice, and they have to oblige the pit, and the pit keeps them all alive and healthy? Happy? Maybe not happy, but at least healthy. And Ada has to try to escape when she realizes she is the next sacrifice. This movie also stars Louis Fessenden, who plays Ada's father, and I've interviewed him on this channel, but I feel like every time that I watch an indie horror movie that I really like, he's randomly in it. And that's true of this one as well. This movie also sort of reminds me of the Shirley Jackson short story The Lottery, if you ever had to read that in school or just on your own time. But overall, really dark and strange movie taking place in the woods. Highly recommend. And now our last 2 films are actually both from 2018. One is Netflix's Apostle. I'm actually wearing the t-shirt for it, which I can't remember. I think this came in some sort of horror subscription box at some point, but it's actually a pretty cool shirt. And a surprisingly really good Netflix horror film. It was written and directed by Gareth Evans, and it follows a man who's trying to save his sister who's been kidnapped by a religious cult that lives on this super isolated island that is being kept alive by supernatural forces, I'll say. Now, this movie is quite brutal and has some religious torture aspects to it, but my favorite part about it is the payoff at the end when you get an understanding of what the supernatural force is surrounding this movie. It is something so cool and something I've never really seen before in a movie, and I don't know, the visuals of it really burned into my brain. So if you know what I'm talking about, leave me a little comment. But overall, really cool movie. And the last one on my list, of course, also from 2018, is Gollum. This was directed by, I think, brothers Doran and Yaov Paz. And this movie is about a woman who's trying to save her very small Jewish community by conjuring a protector. But instead, she accidentally releases a powerful and very destructive force. Now, golems are something from Jewish folklore, and from what I understand, it is some sort of being, entity, thing that is conjured up and created from mud or other natural elements that is then animated and can do things. This movie I really liked because it has a surprising amount of gore in it, like I really didn't expect it. And all of the gore is just very fun, very well done, but it's still like a very dark, sad, brutal movie. But then you have these like kind of moments of like explosive, very explosive gore that I thought were fun. And that's it, people. If you have other folk horror recommendations, make sure you comment them down below. And if you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. And of course, have a nice scream. Bye.